Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Tyler from the Unemployed Architects. So this week, definitely a little bit different. I had a good friend of ours from the band NoRobot join us. This is really only going to be, like initially, it was only going to be like a segment on my full Weekend Warrior Show recap where I'd go through like the last 4 shows I've played. But it was a good conversation, and we had a lot to talk about. We're pretty much just talking about the Castle Theater, and us. We did a show together there with Chicago Farmer Henhouse Prowlers, which I do talk at the end of the next podcast. You'll hear me talk about it a little bit, but this is much more in depth, and just talking about the one show. So, and it just ended up being a lot longer. So. It was a fun conversation. So Alex, myself, and Laurelyn were just recapping kind of the Castle show and just our thoughts and everything. So that's what you'll be listening to. I'll fade it in. Okay, so this is Alex from NoRobot. He joined us as well as a bunch of other bands at the Castle Theater January 4th. A little last weekend.
Saturday.
So we were just gonna talk about the show a little bit. So you knew Zach pretty well.
Yeah.
So how long have you known him?
Yeah, I met Zach maybe like 10 years ago at through a friend of ours, mutual friend Mikey B.
Mikey B.
Yeah.
And was Zach played a little bit, didn't he? Was he a musician of some sort?
Yeah. Bluegrass, folk. Played banjo. I think he played more guitar when I met him. We'd like just sit in and play all sorts, just like blues rock jams, everyone just making noise. And then I think he kind of found his way to the banjo, mandolin. I think the longer he got into music, he just really went down that bluegrass folk
kind of rabbit hole. So Zach was the guy that the Celebration of Life was for when we played at the Castle. It was NoRobot, us, Chicago Farmer, and Henhouse Prowlers with special guests. Legend of Levi, right?
Yeah.
So he's a harmonica player, mainly.
Legend of Levi, Morgan. Yeah. It's Boots and his brother Dan, and Boots was actually the one who I think came up with the whole idea.
Yeah, he organized the whole thing.
Yeah, with the family, and yeah, I think he did a great job. Like I remember when he first talked about it, he was like, do you think anyone, do you think people are going to come? Like, he was just worried, sweating the whole thing, being the go-between for everyone, and the way it turned out.
I mean, there were so many people.
Yeah.
I couldn't even guess. Maybe 200 people.
I think someone told me it was like over 400 tickets sold.
Wow.
Yeah. It was definitely.
It was a pretty amazing turnout, and it was all people that were really into music, which was awesome. I don't think we necessarily get a play for a crowd like that. Us, the Unemployed Architects, don't play for a crowd like. Usually we play and there's just people there.
Right. Just happen to be.
Impose your will. Yeah.
But it was nice to have like real like receptive people in the audience and stuff. And it was nice to when we play, a lot of the times we're doing the longer sets, so we got to come out and watch you guys play, which was very cool. And kind of get ready for our set, and we knocked ours out really. I mean, both of our sets were both pretty quick, and then
as soon as you're up there, it was like over like that.
Right.
So true.
And then Chicago Farmer, I think he played a little bit longer, but it was nice to get to enjoy his set. I didn't really see as much of the Henhouse Prowlers as I would have liked, but I saw a good portion, and we saw them for sound check, and they were doing just these warm up songs, and it was empty theater, so they were just like sounding so full, and just it was nice.
Like angels.
Yeah,
their harmonies are insane.
They were very, very good singers.
That's the cool thing with like those types of bluegrass bands that all stand around the mic.
Yeah.
They're fun to watch too.
It's good at projecting and just mixing.
It's so intimate too. It's cool to.
They did end up. I was kind of surprised that. I mean, it makes sense, but a lot of the instruments had mics as well. So like, they did like one mic setup, but then they, if they need a little extra bass, they could push the standing bass or the mandolin, and that gave them the option too. I think some of them had some pedals that they could, boost their signal a little bit when they needed to do like a solo. So I mean, it still is kind of like that traditional setup, but you got a little extra bump sometimes, which was nice.
Oh yeah, cover your bases.
But
the details, right?
yeah, and me and Lo have done. I watched the Way Down Wonders do a performance like that, which they're kind of bluegrass-esque. I mean, kind of on the pop side, but still mainly bluegrass. And they did a one mic setup and I was doing sound, and of course that made it super easy for me. I just had to make one, but watching them was just super entertaining and they had a full drum kit too. It wasn't like so it wasn't as traditional. But, I mean, they didn't need, for the place that they were playing, they didn't need anything extra. And it was just, like, so entertaining because, they had it rehearsed enough that if somebody was doing, like, a solo, they would step forward and then they would fall back. And who's singing lead? The other two were, like, the appropriate distance away.
It really adds to it. Like, have you ever heard of Horseshoes and Hand Grenades?
I've heard the name. I don't really know them as well.
They're another group like that. I think it's got, like, even, like, a few more people in Hen House Prowlers, like, about, like, maybe like 5-6 people all just crowd around. Each person steps up, takes their lead, steps back. Everyone's kind of.
But whenever
group effort,
something really about it.
Especially me when I'm doing the foot drums, I'm so locked down. I feel like I'm not as entertaining. But when you're doing that one mic, and you never know.
Kind of forces you to move a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of the shoegazing myself a lot. Like tried picking it up a little bit, but I don't know. Mostly if I was moving around, it's just because like my back was kind of hurting a lot. I'm pretty stiff up there too, man. But that's the great thing about having someone like Dave in the band.
Oh yeah, he takes the eyes off you for sure.
He's really. He's moving enough for everyone.
All the energy.
If I had an actual drummer, I would definitely move around a lot more. When we played with a drummer, it was much easier to. Be more entertaining. But when I'm kind of locked to those foot drums, and then Lo as well,
you're the lead, yeah.
She moves around quite a bit, dances and stuff. So
I feel like there's always some when you got a group like that too, it's always if you're not given energy, someone will be. It all works out up there. Yeah.
Cool.
So let's talk a little bit more about your set. So what did you think of the sound check?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was weird at first because, like, I mean,
how many
so
pieces,
many people. Yeah,
how many pieces was it, and how many pieces do you normally play with?
Yeah, so we're like a 3-piece normally as of now, and we had 8 people up there with us.
8 people,
yeah. Wow. We had about like 2 weeks to get everyone together. And Boots asked to play with us with his brother, and then our friend Ian, an old guitar player, like a founding member, was up. Asked to join us. Dave was playing with you guys, so he asked to join us, and then we reached out to Felt. It just kind of all fell together.
Right.
Everyone.
So it was a big band performance.
Yeah.
Especially when you're used to doing a 3-piece and probably used to getting like an adequate sound check for that 3-piece.
Oh yeah.
It was a little bit different, I would guess.
It took a while. It took a while.
Yeah, and you guys were you guys the last ones to sound check?
I think so.
So
yeah, I think so.
You guys probably had the least amount of time because how it usually goes is the first person who sound checks always takes way too long.
Yeah, and then you're pretty much line checking by the end, right?
Yeah. And of course the sound guy's just getting everything up and running, so he kind of usually takes a little bit longer on that first group, and then it steadily you get more behind and more behind. I mean, we got a pretty decent one, but it still was not nearly long enough.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like for me too, it's just. There's so much up there that like I kept asking for everything in my monitor, and then right before he got off I was like, can you just bump me really loud in here, like I'm just gonna listen to that. And we all knew what we were gonna play, so we just kind of went with it. I've definitely, with so much going on up there, it was just really hard, I think, to dial in a monitor for me, like,
and especially
someone's gonna be
that
loud.
many pieces for the amount of time you guys had to sound check. I mean, it just would have been hard to get.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, it definitely sounded good out front.
Oh yeah, I heard the recordings, and I could hear everything like well. So it was just like kind of trusting in that, and just kind of.
I don't know. I'm a stickler about monitor mixing. It's just such a, there's an art to it that like I can't ever quite figure out. But I don't really use my floor monitors anymore. I used to be, there was a while there where I would pretty much only put my acoustic and my vocal in the monitor, and I'd put my vocal pretty high, and then just I could hear everybody else fine usually on stage. But then as you learn more and I listened into some old recordings recently, I used to go sharp like all the time because I was constantly fighting like the room sound and trying to get loud enough to like hear myself on those floor monitors. And then it turned into using a vocal monitor so I could I'd have the floor mix, and I'd really just put whatever was in the mains in the floor mix, and then I would boost my vocals with that extra vocal monitor, and that worked a lot better than just the floor. But then now I've been using the in-ears, and it's like a whole different world.
Oh yeah, I still haven't messed with that yet, but that's what I've heard. I couldn't. I always try to do the earplugs, and I've talked to plenty of people that use that. I think I've seen Hubbard use that. Maybe Chicago Farmer. I think I saw him have one in the other night, but I just can't sing like with the earplugs. I just can't. Yeah, I feel like that
Feels
would be weird. Yeah, you'd hear yourself different, and you'd feel
just
probably
muffled,
like
and you're really loud,
Yeah.
and I don't know. So the in-ears are nice because obviously it's just like listening to yourself on an iPod, kind of. That's how I always describe it. But it's still like a different, because you'll get, at least me, I'm fighting all these old muscle memory habits of having to, push really hard. So then I find myself now having the in-ears that, I naturally want to push harder, which makes me go sharper. And then, like, I'm constantly having to be like, you just need to relax a little bit because it isn't as hard to do, which is nice.
No, yeah, for sure. Then you can really, if you can hear it that good, too, that you can, like, lay off of it.
Yeah. But then you're having to really trust, your own sound guy, or that you got a good, because a lot of times we do our own sound, so we're having to trust that it sounded good when we sound checked. And that'll be good for all night, because then all I'm hearing is the in-ear. So you either have to have somebody out front to tweak stuff when it needs to be tweaked, but also, you're having a tough time sometimes if people out front can't hear you and you're doing your own sound. So
That's true.
But okay, so that your sound check was a little bit short. The actual performance part of it, how'd you feel about that?
That was good, man. I was listening back to recordings. It was cool because they had like a lot of different people out there recording. Like, I think there are 2 or 3 different recordings up on Archive.
And we
YouTube videos.
We've listened to ours as well, and it's depending on which one you listen to. I mean, there's some that sound pretty good.
Yeah, there's like a couple of different ones, like, because I don't know if they were at different parts of the venue, and then I think someone also went off
the board.
The board, yeah. So there's different mixes,
and I think there's going to be a video with the board mix at some point.
Yeah, I'm looking out for that link. Hopefully, we'll be able to like share that and stuff too for everyone. But I was like, we had 8 people up there, so and it was for our friend Zach. So I was like, well, we should obviously play some Grateful Dead,
right?
Because like that many people up there, let's just get some cool stuff and jam on it,
Right.
Like
and you guys definitely did that. It was fun to. We had played with you at the Night Shop a while back, so that was my first NoRobot experience, and that was, great.
That was a fun show, man.
That was a fun show. Was that with
Miss Christine and
Eric Paul? So that was our first. And you guys,
so cool.
I think between the two of us, because I think Dave's kind of the overlap, but because we were both there, I feel like it was a lot of extra people that came, because a lot of people that follow you guys had heard of us and know Dave, so it was like they came out, and then your name's NoRobot's been around forever too, so if there's anybody that like was following us had probably heard your name before. So
yeah, definitely, like Dave's a driving force. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
He's a booker, promoter, percussionist,
right?
Yeah.
So, but that was one of the great things about the show at the castle, was having him play both the sets. So it was like he could,
Yeah. That was, and like, I think he might have been the first one. It was just funny. Everyone just came to us like individually, and then we reached out to Feldy, and we reached out to our old drummer too, but he was unavailable that night. And yeah, we just decided to play a couple Dead songs, and then we played an original of mine that we used to play when Ian and Feldy and Dave were in the group, so everyone kind of knew that. And then the last song we ended on was one of Boots's, yeah.
He sang
and
that. He did a pretty good job.
That was good. And we, you know what I mean? Like, I was nervous too, because he was like, I thought they had their own set, and he was like, no, we're just gonna get up with you and do one of ours. And he was really nice. You know, he's like, if you want. And I was like, dude, of course. Like,
yeah.
And that, you know, I didn't know what it was gonna be, and man,
he seemed like he kept up pretty good. I mean,
oh yeah. Well, it was funny when we all got together. We like went through everything once, and it was like, and then the second time, like just the second time running through the set, it was good, you know. A couple transitions, a couple of decisions, and
I'm guessing he was already a Grateful Dead fan, maybe.
Boots, yeah, he listened to he seems more in line with like a Henhouse Prowler type vibe than but I was like, you listen to the Dead, right? Like, and he's more folky, like country type.
I was just thinking maybe he already like kind of knew those songs.
Oh no, he did. I was like, you know this stuff, right? And he's like, yeah.
I wouldn't have had much luck. I never really. I've yet to. It's something on my list that
we picked a bunch of stuff, and then we ended up kind of just sticking with two songs that a core of us knew pretty well in Scarlet Begonias and Deal. We were also thinking of doing Pasta on the Mountain, which is a cover of Fire on the Mountain. It's like by Leftover Salmon, another one of Zach's favorite bands. And because I always like the goofy take on the Deadhead shit. Like the thing that with Zach was like, I was never like super into the Dead, and he kind of like was a lot cooler about it than a lot of other Deadheads are. Like I think there's a bit of a cultish thing with the following.
You notice that with any band.
Yeah, and I think that can be a turnoff to people who aren't a part of that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't really like that. He was just about
make fun of it a little.
Yeah, he kind of fit in that box, but he was who he was. Like he wasn't trying to be something he wasn't. You know.
It was really just crazy to see how many people that guy knew.
I know
for sure.
He was the driving force behind those.
Just every single.
Well, right after it happened. I mean, I've never met him before. I think Dave said he came to one of our shows at like Cadillac Jack's, but I didn't get formally introduced or anything.
Right.
So, you know, after it happened, to see the outpour on Facebook was just crazy. To see how many people knew him and how many people were so sad about it. And then when they set up the celebration of life, to see how many people came out to, you know, get behind that kind of cause, I guess, to remember him. And I just thought that was crazy.
It was way more packed than like some Castle shows I've been to.
Yeah, we've played a few Castle
crazy.
shows that have not been that packed. That was probably the busiest we've ever. That was definitely the most people we've played for in like 5 or maybe even 10 years. You know,
yeah, that was one of the
House
bigger...
of Blues. That was forever.
For me,
ago.
the busiest show I've ever done.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that's definitely up.
And
there,
it was nice. It was just nice to have an attentive crowd that you know, not just people just because I mean, at a celebration of life, it could go either way, but. Because, you know, there's people just kind of reminiscing and, like, trying to remember the person. But because music was such a big part of, I think, who Zach was.
Yeah, and knew a lot of people through that. And I think, like a lot of people, you know, one of the things about him was his, like, approach to just... Like, he was, like, very real person. He wouldn't say anything just that you wanted to hear. But he was always, like, really kind and always trying to... Really generous, trying to be your friend. Genuine dude, you know? And I think people, like, take that approach with his passing. No one was... You know, people are obviously upset, but I think people, you know, come together more over it and try to remember the good stuff, like...
Yeah, Dave
you know.
Dave kept saying that over and over again, that, like, he just, like... He liked the guy so much, and he was just such a good dude, and just always remembering the good parts. Not that there weren't bad parts.
Oh no, yeah.
he did bring that up a fair amount too, but he's like,
definitely,
he doesn't even. He's like, it doesn't even matter.
Balance of life, though, right?
Yeah, man. Like,
Some good, some bad.
He is
But
who he
it sounds
is,
like
and-
way more good than bad. I mean, if you again, we don't really know him that well, but just seeing that outpour from the community,
Oh,
The
man.
outcome
you
from
know
the
it was
show.
mostly good. Like,
Definitely, like, and his family and like everyone I've really met through him was like really kind. Like, I didn't know Boots until after Zach. I met Boots at Zach's funeral, and I'd always heard about him because he's actually married to Zach's sister. He's Zach's brother-in-law.
okay,
And he's just such a cool dude, you know. You're like, wow, like, I see, you know, why Zach liked you. And, you know, I had a lot of people come up to me I hadn't met who were like, oh, you know, Zach said it always talked about you, like his dad. Like, I didn't know what to say to him, so I honestly didn't, you know, approach him right away. But after the end of the night, you know, not the show at the funeral, you know, he came up to me and we were talking and stuff, and, you know, you never know what to say in those situations, but you just end up talking about, you know, the good
Just the
stuff, or just,
connection,
like,
the
just, you
connection
know.
between. I mean, the common ground you have is obviously Zach, so I'm sure that's how you
Yeah,
guys really.
so you just
kinda-
talk about that, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun show. Like I keep saying, it was like one of the busiest and most fun shows we've did. I always overstress on shows like that because there's a lot of bands and trying
Yeah.
to rush to get everything set up and tore down and then but after we were done, you know, it was like I could just relax, which was nice.
Oh, yeah. That's
And then-
what I like about playing earlier sets, too,
Right,
sometimes.
right.
And
then
you're all done for that part.
watching Chicago Farmer play, I feel like he's always pretty next level.
Oh, yeah.
He just he knows how to kill a crowd, man.
Yeah, and
just
he has great
It's
songs.
his thing.
Yeah.
That's like what he was meant to do,
Right,
I think.
but
He just has
just-
a flow.
Just the way that, I mean, one guy and an acoustic guitar. I mean, he played a little bit of harmonica too, but the way that he can just get a whole crowd just like captivated is always just so amazing to me. And the songs are great too.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's just all around good. And it's weird sometimes because it's not like he's a perfect pitch kind of guy. I mean, he can sing. He can be a little flat or a little sharp, but it just doesn't even matter because you're so enthralled by his performance. And I felt like his voice was like even a lot more. It was a lot better and a lot more powerful than last. Like he was like kind of belting sometimes, which I'd never seen him do. And then him playing the harmonica was like, I feel like he was next level on that as well.
Yeah, man. Like, I was listening to a lot of his stuff after the show too. Like, just recently. And yeah, he writes a lot of really relatable
Yeah.
things. Like, you know, it's like
He's a storyteller.
he's a part of this, and he tells stories about like our community and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you're like,
Over
oh,
on-
I know that place. I
over
know
on
this,
Prairie
you know.
Street.
Relatable.
Yeah, exactly.
For us, relatable.
Stuff like that. Yeah,
Very
you're
relatable.
like,
He has
100%,
a
yeah.
good way of just like going to a town beforehand and taking in the town a little bit, and then he'll insert stuff from that specific place in. So if he's playing somewhere that he's not that familiar with, they'll feel like because he'll mention
Oh, yeah, yeah.
a bar
Shout
right
out.
down the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he'll insert that where he says that bar on Prairie Street. You know, he'll say the bar on Mill Street if he's in a different town, or Main Street or something, and it just the way it like
Feels familiar.
yeah. Well, I
Kinda
mean,
like
people are
family,
like,
you know?
oh, he's from like he's pretty much like a guy from right around the corner.
Right.
You know,
The guy next door.
It's
Yeah.
like that type. It really like is that style like folk music. I really like. You know that like
Yeah, it's comforting.
Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie, like I don't know, Phil Oakes, kind of really personal. I don't know, and the style too. It just really, I don't know.
he's awesome, and
Good
he's
stuff.
been awesome for a long time. I don't
Yeah,
think there's
yeah.
ever really any debate.
And super nice too. You know, he's just
Yeah.
such a cool dude. Like talking to him, you know.
Well, his following is
Yeah,
huge.
I mean he played up in Alaska not that long
Oh
ago.
wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
How cool. Ben.
That's, I love his new band too. That Field Notes.
Yeah,
he's
that's
got the guys
Jake
from Bone
Willis
Jugs and stuff
and-
too.
Jake Willis.
Cody Jensen.
Something about him.
So, and then the Hen House Prowler show, like I said, I didn't see I ended up talking to you up in the green room for a lot of
yeah.
show, which was about as good as going down and hanging out and listening to the music, because I always like a good conversation, but that's what got us to do the podcast in general.
Yeah.
And then everybody got on stage at the end of the Hen House Prowler show, and that was really cool as well. and just like nobody would leave pretty much. They came out, I think, for 2 encores.
Yeah.
They came to stay.
Right. So they
came. They came to play for sure, and they definitely, were on stage the longest out of any of us, and then to have to come back and do those extra songs at the end, but there was such a good crowd. Like it would have been hard for me to get off the stage as well, and then everybody joined. I didn't go up because I didn't really know any of the songs that well, but
I walked out, but I forgot that the bluegrass set up, so I just hung in the back, and I was like, oh, that's right, they don't have like more mics. I'd already unloaded all my equipment. I was like, but then the I don't know if it's the performer in me or just the my unwillingness to admit when I'm being a jackass. I just stayed out there, and I gave it my all. Or the performer in me, that's what it was. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I just knew I knew that I would have been like that if I got on stage, I guess, because I always end up the thing is I wouldn't be able to hang really. I mean, it seemed like what they were doing was just an A major, so I would have been okay to strum along, but there were already maybe 4 guitars on stage.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, musically, I was like, if we got a chorus section going.
And I think that's kind of what they were going for a little bit, and the crowd definitely was helping sing at the end, which was cool. They did a couple songs that everybody seemed to know, and I'd heard, but I didn't know it well enough to just jump on. But it was awesome to see that kind of. And they ended up, and on their second encore, the one mic wasn't, all the PA equipment was off, and they just did it completely unplugged.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's when I think they came off after Circle Won't Be Broken, and then they're just just went out unplugged on. Yeah.
So it was fun, and the crowd stuck around, and everybody was really cool. And anyway, so then after that, we had all our stuff packed up, so I just loaded out and got going. But did you end up and hang out after? Or?
Yeah, I went over to Diggers for a little while. Starts getting a little spotty around there. Ended up at a friend's birthday party a little bit later because they were kind enough to share their birthday with our show, so they just kind of did a little bit of an after party for
that's awesome.
Some people. Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the Castle. So you got some shows coming up that you want to promote, or anywhere people can find your music, or?
Yeah, man. Thanks again for having me. You can find NoRobot, all together, one word, on Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube, and we have shows coming up. Jazz Up Front on February 15th, and a possible residency there through March and April. That
sounds awesome.
Still pending those dates.
Cool.
So.
And then any other things in the books, or is that pretty much it? I know you've been working on some recording.
Yeah, we've been recording with our buddy Toads and also our friend Joe over at Normal Space. Toads is... God, I can't remember the name of his label right now. I'm sorry, Toads. But we're doing a little bit of a split between the two places, putting it all together. Hopefully April or May or something we'll have that out. Spotify and hard copies, hit me up.
Very cool.
Right.
Well, thanks for coming. It was a blast of a show and a fun podcast, so appreciate it. And
thanks, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thanks for anybody who listened. Always appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.